Hello, this is Phil Chapman, and I'm the subject matter expert for cybersecurity, and I look after the cyber portfolio at Firebrand Training. And welcome to my presentation, all about getting a job in cyber. You may have seen the previous presentation where I spoke to you about how do you get into cyber. It's not a bad idea to dig that one out because I'll be alluding to some of the points that I brought up previously. But this presentation is aimed at anybody who is looking for a new career in cybersecurity, or anybody who's looking to map some foundation learning in cyber, or you just may be somebody who's looking to understand more about the roles of cybersecurity and where that may take you. So coming up in this presentation, we're going to cover some key areas such as researching the job market, and I'll get you to think about what it is that you want to be within the world of cyber, which is something that we spoke about in the first presentation. We'll then also talk about getting some knowledge and skills and thinking about your behaviours, and we'll refer to those as the KSBs, knowledge, skills and behaviours. Then we're going to go into my take on what a good CV looks like. Throughout the presentation as well, I'll be referring to transferable skills, and we'll also take a look at different areas where you may want to study for your future career in cyber. So let's begin with researching the job market. Now, if you were to take a look at job sites and do some research, it's a good idea to filter on the different posts which are available first and foremost in your area, as you may not want to travel. But if you are willing to travel, of course, it then gives you a wider scope of areas that may interest you. And when you look at the job listings, take a look at the knowledge and skills that they are requiring. Sometimes you'll see these down as essential or desired, and it's important to understand what is meant by that. Try and pick out what type of technologies they are looking for knowledge and skills in, so potentially Microsoft or Cisco, and then think about whether or not you have any experience with these particular technologies. Most importantly, take a look at what type of person they're looking for, and this will allow you then to start to develop those transferable skills that we'll talk about throughout this course. Some organisations may also require or desire you to have certifications, so again, have a little look and see what those are. And again, even though it sounds a little odd, ask yourself the question if you really want to work for this company. And I'll talk a bit more about that later on. When we're thinking about the all-important knowledge, skills and behaviours, it's a good idea to take a look at the job posts and see if you can analyse it and break it down into those three areas, the KSBs. And also take a look at what depth of knowledge is required. Are any credentials also desirable or required? As we mentioned previously, you may also need to come to the party with some technical skills or experience, but in some cases that might not necessarily be required. Most importantly, what personal attributes or behaviours are important to them. On the slide, you can see an example of a recent search that I've conducted looking for a junior cybersecurity role, and this one is looking for a junior security operations centre analyst somewhere in the north of the UK. And you can see the essential knowledge, skills and behaviours that they're looking for. So in this case, it's somebody with a good understanding of IT and cybersecurity. That might be because you've been studying it, for example, or you just have a natural interest in it. You should have some kind of experience with IT systems and desktops, but notice that they don't actually specify how deep that experience needs to be. But then, most importantly, look at the personal attributes that they're asking you to bring to this particular post. Analytical and problem-solving abilities, customer service mindset, passion for continuous learning. And these are all great attributes that you may already have without even having to think about it. And it may mean, of course, that you've also got a proven track record of using these essential skills in a previous job that's not necessarily related to cyber. Another question that I ask myself a lot is, well, what do you want to be when you grow up, Phil? And so here within the world of cyber, you need to think about what the key roles are that you may be interested in. And again, if you're not familiar with this, take a look at the previous presentation that I did, where we take a look at some of the roles, such as a security engineer or a defender and responder that sits in the security operations centre. Or if you're more of an analyst, you may want to be a risk analyst or perhaps a threat intelligence analyst. There are also some cybersecurity jobs, generally for smaller organisations, that may require you to be good in all three areas. And so we call those generalists. Wherever you're coming from and whatever it is that you're aiming to do, it's very important to get some form of knowledge and skills behind you. And there are lots of foundation courses available to you. You should really be looking at getting these through recognised learning providers and ultimately with some form of certification that can prove the fact that you've completed the course to a satisfactory level. And I've listed some of the most common vendors from a certification point of view on this particular slide. So the likes of CompTIA, Security Plus is a great starting point, for example. EC Council, again, have a wide range of different courses available to you. And then some other well-known vendors in the world of information security and risk, such as ISC2 or ISACA. Don't go straight in at the deep end because you'll invariably find yourself out of your depth. And also it means that they will be pretty meaningless when you put them on your CV and present them to a future employer. Also think about your behaviours. Now these are those transferable skills that I like to mention. Make a list of everything that you are good at. Okay, so things like working as a team, being trustworthy, punctual, reliable, all of these great attributes that make you the employee of the month. Most importantly, however, make sure that you can evidence some of this either with a proven track record of your employment or within references that you may need to support your job application. Also within here as well, think about your interests and hobbies, something that sets you apart from the crowd. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about what I mean by that when we discuss writing our CVs. So what does a good CV look like? Now here, I absolutely need to caveat this with the fact that a CV is a very personal document. So what I'm going to talk to you about next is my take on what a good CV looks like. You may have your own personal way of doing it, or indeed you may have good advice and guidance from other people. But remember, whatever style of CV you use, it is purely just a wrapper for the content, and the content of your CV is the most important part. So getting that across to the employer is a critical part of what you're trying to do. And employers really need to know who you are, what you can do, if relevant, what experience you have. Are you likely to fit in either within the team that they've got lined up for you or the company as a whole? And of course, most importantly, you want them to give you a call back. So how could they contact you? And when it comes to putting together your CV, think of it in the lens of the reader or the employer. So be self-critical when you read back through it. Include a lot of detail that jumps out at the paper so it makes an impact. Keep it short but not lacking in detail. That's a skill in its own right, of course. And remove anything that might distract the reader. So things like graphics, unnecessary colours and fonts. Make it easy to read. So just use a simple font and a simple format. Remove any ambiguities. If there are too many grey areas in your CV, there's a very good chance that you won't make it through the next sift. And make sure that it's personal to you and about you. This is especially important if you're going to use any form of artificial intelligence to help you create it. And again, everybody loves to use AI, but I'll talk to you about how you can use it to your advantage later on. The format of your CV should be simple and effective. I would suggest that the maximum is 2 pages, and if you're going old school and submitting a paper CV, don't staple the pages together. Use a header to include your contact details, and this means that your contact details will be on both pages. Make sure that you have a sensible email address. So if you have a very odd or personal or jokey email address that you like to use, create a different account using a free email service such as Outlook or Gmail, and just use your simple name. Remember that the format of your CV should also flow in logical sections. So the employer wants to know your professional profile, any qualifications and experience that you have, employment history, which is very important, and then any personal details, which makes you stand out from the crowd. As I've mentioned, it is a very personal document to you, but some of the key tips that I can give you are use plain, simple fonts. Maybe something that's point 10 or point 12. Bolden headlines, absolutely, but don't use excessive colours. And you don't need to include pictures or photographs. Avoid using online templates which simply waste space. Remember, it's just a wrapper for the contents, and the contents are the most important thing. Make sure that your contact details are on each page, which is why I've suggested using a header. Remember the 3 R's when it comes to the contents. It should be real, relevant, and realistic. Okay, and this is the art of creating a CV. In this particular instance, be very careful when you're using AI, because AI doesn't know you. It doesn't know your personal traits. And so when it comes to being realistic and relevant about you, AI may not always get it right. But make sure if you are using these systems that you tweak the contents to meet your needs, and also make sure that you understand fully what has been written about you. When it comes to being realistic, here's an example of a CV that I saw recently. Reading the personal profile of this particular applicant, who is going for a high-level cybersecurity architect role. How much experience do you think they actually have within the security sector, and what qualifications do they hold? And if you read through this person's personal profile, it looks like they are very, very good. They talk a lot about the fact that they know a lot about information technology and cybersecurity, up to an architect level, which is pretty much at the pinnacle when it comes to cybersecurity and information security. So this is a top-end job that they are going for. They even consider themselves to be a technical expert in areas, and so that it looks like they are very suitable for this particular job. If I show you the kind of job that this person is going for, and again, here's a real example of a job vacancy for a cybersecurity architect. And this, as you can see, is a very attractive starting salary of £80,000 a year. I won't read out all of the key responsibilities, the essential qualifications and experience, or the desirable certifications in here, but you can see that they are asking for 5 years of experience, and some very high level knowledge and certifications are required for this particular job. The reality is, however, for the individual that wrote their CV wanting to be a security architect, is that they had no real life experience in the cybersecurity sector at all. They do hold, however, 3 very good foundation certificates in cybersecurity and information security, which they acquired over a 3-week bootcamp period. They have also done some online learning, but this has not been certified. And they currently work as an admissions officer in a college. So if that applicant was going for this job, based on their personal profile, there is a very good chance that they may have made the sift and gone through to interview. But what do you think the chances of them actually being hired as a cybersecurity architect are? That's right, none whatsoever. It would have been a complete waste of everybody's time in this to have actually called them through for interview. So be realistic about what it is that you are trying to achieve. Some key things to avoid is fabricating the truth. So never ever lie on your CV. Always make sure that you have full employment history and there are no gaps. And this is particularly important if you're going for a job in security. Don't simply use bullet points that give no further detail about what the contents are. And also remember that if you're going to highlight your great transferable skills, like being a good team player, that this needs to be backed up with some form of evidence. And that may be in the form of a reference by a previous employer. Always avoid spelling and grammar mistakes. Make sure that your CV is spell checked. And try to write your CV in a style that fits your personality. Don't be overly verbose or use long words when you don't really know what the meanings are. Try not to dwell on negatives. So if you have no experience whatsoever, don't dwell on the fact that you have no experience in CV, but maybe highlight the other positive attributes that you've got. Avoid wasting space by using unnecessary templates, and avoid reading, walking, and listening to music. I'll explain what I mean by that in a little bit. Remember that if you're going for a job in security, you need to show that you're a responsible person that can be trusted, and also that you understand your ethical responsibilities when dealing with cybersecurity. And I've already mentioned the fact that you should use a professional looking email address. Be very, very careful with your social media presence, especially if you're applying to an organisation that requires a security clearance, because there is a very good chance that they will take a look at your public profile in their assessment process. Only give the employer what they're asking for, so a CV, covering letter, or any other paperwork that they may require. And always, of course, play to your strengths. So those may be your personal attributes or your transferable skills. And don't forget, of course, that you are applying for a very responsible position within an organisation. So they are looking to employ somebody who have these kind of attributes. When it comes to talking about your personal profile, make yourself sparkle, stand out from the crowd. Don't simply be that person that likes walking, reading and listening to music, because everybody does that. If you have an interesting hobby or something unusual that you do outside of work, perhaps like charity work, bring that to the fore. Those kind of attributes are always great for enforcing some of the key things that we're looking for in cybersecurity. Make sure that it's something that you do know something about, of course, and that you can talk passionately about. This also shows that you're an effective communicator and a people person. Remember, that's a fine attribute for anybody coming into cyber. These transferable skills that I keep harking on about are absolutely key. And you saw in that job advert that 3 out of the 5 essential skills had nothing at all to do with cybersecurity and everything to do with these transferable skills. Working as a team, good communication skills, reliability, for example. Make sure that also you are keen to learn new things, and maybe you've already started that progress by taking on a course. Other things that you need to be aware of are things that we mentioned on the first presentation. Keep up to date with current affairs knowledge and keep up to date with technology. You will probably be asked questions at interview about these different aspects. When it comes to actually researching for a job, make sure that you know what the company does. Is the location important to you, and are you happy to travel? That may, of course, also be international travel if you're lucky enough to secure a position that allows you to do that. Who are the key personnel within the organisation? And again, you can get this from open source or the public profile of the company that you're going for. Is there anything in the news about them? Do they have any projects in the pipeline or something that interests you? Are you interested in whatever they produce or do? What service do they provide? 9 times out of 10, if you love what your company does, it often doesn't feel like you're actually at work. Another great area to check out, especially if you're new to cybersecurity, is check out the cybersecurity apprenticeships, and in particular the level 3 or level 4 cybersecurity apprenticeships. They're a great option for anybody who is new, and the good news with these is that you need no prerequisite knowledge, skills or behaviours to come into this. It's important, obviously, to have some of the foundation skills in place, such as English and maths, and it's also important, of course, to have an interest in technology and cyber, because it will be quite a long apprenticeship. The level 4 cybersecurity technologist apprenticeship can take 2 years to complete. Check these out on the Skills England website, and also take a look at the site of training providers and the courses that they offer. Remember that from the employer side of things, they do want to positively recruit. In a lot of cases, that means that they want talent or an individual that they can develop into the role. They may already have an understanding of the value of certification and training, which is why they put it on the job site. And they all understand the value of experience and transferable skills. Remember, however, that they don't have a great deal of time and money to waste sifting through CVs, and they don't want to hire the wrong people. So make sure that you focus on the positives, and make sure, of course, that you remember the 3 R's when you submit your CV. It should be real, relevant and realistic to what it is that you need to achieve. So putting it all together, make sure that your contact details are on every page. That's important. Make sure that your professional profile highlights your transferable skills and don't dwell on the negatives. Put relevant qualifications and experience in place. The key word here, of course, is relevant, and ensure that there are no gaps in your employment history, and again bring to the fore any transferable skills that you've had, regardless of the line of work that you've been involved in. From the personal details, sparkle. Don't simply put, in my spare time, I like to read books, listen to music and go for walks. Everybody does that. Make yourself stand out. That takes me on nicely into using artificial intelligence, which everybody does, don't get me wrong. But the clever bit here is that once you've actually put that into ChatGPT or Copilot, get the results and then personalize it to meet your needs. Translate the responses into your own words, how you would normally type or speak. Remember, you need to personalize this. Make sure that you remove any spelling or grammar errors. This is particularly important for removing things like US spellings and formats. Try to make it look less like AI did it and that you actually wrote it yourself. Again, focus on the 3 R's and make sure that you know the contents well. Read through it several times to ensure that you understand what that output means. Some key areas to think about as you're preparing for interview is that it's absolutely fine to be nervous or anxious. And in fact, I would probably suggest it's natural to be nervous or anxious before you go for interview. Remember, it's not an interrogation, but it's an opportunity for you to shine in front of a future employer. Make sure that you know the contents of your CV well, and make sure that you know about the business, of course, that you're going to work for. Focus on your transferable skills that make you sparkle. And of course, remember the essentials such as being on time, planning your route to get there, be appropriately dressed, and when invited to, ask questions. A good idea, of course, is to prepare before you go into any line of work. So boost your knowledge and skills by getting some recognised training. And there are lots of great foundation courses that are available to meet the needs of all cybersecurity careers. And I've listed some of them here on this slide. CompTIA Security Plus is a great foundation or starting point for anybody involved in cybersecurity, and also allows you to take a look at the different areas. So which one floats your boat? Which one would you like to go into? Which one would you definitely not like to go into? And then the others will then start to layer in different concepts and different ideas across the technical side of security or the information security side of things, if that's the kind of areas that you want to go into. But always seek advice and guidance is a good thing. And reach out, of course, to a training provider who will be able to give you that guidance. And so the people at Firebrand, of course, would be a good starting point for you to reach out if you needed to discuss any further. And all that's left for me to say is good luck. Enjoy your cybersecurity career, and by all means let me know if any advice or guidance that you've seen on this presentation has actually helped you secure your post within cybersecurity. It'd be great to hear from you.